Do make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. They say words don't kill, but my mother's did that night. At the dinner table, in front of my siblings, her friends, and even the pastor she so adored, she looked me dead in the eye and called me a failure. Not once. Not twice. But enough times for everyone there to join in the silent laughter. I didn't argue. I didn't flinch. I only gripped my glass tighter, forcing a smile I didn't feel. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that for the past 2 years, the roof over their heads, the lights above their meals, and the very food on that table had been quietly paid for, by me. And when I revealed it, I knew it would silence every single tongue that mocked me. But to understand that night, you need to hear my story from the beginning. My name is Jordan, and for as long as I can remember, I've carried the title of disappointment. Not because I was lazy, or because I didn't try, but because my life didn't fit the neat picture my mother painted for her friends. My siblings all became something impressive early on: lawyers, accountants, the kind of people she could brag about at church. Me? I took longer to figure things out. I worked odd jobs, struggled through setbacks, even slept in my car once. To my mother, that was enough proof. Proof that I'd always be the wasted one. Every dinner felt like a courtroom, with her as the judge. I was always guilty. But what they didn't see were the nights I stayed awake, working on something in secret, something that would one day rewrite everything they thought they knew about me. And by the time I stood at that table, being mocked like a child, my plan for revenge was already complete. While my mother labeled me the failure, I wore my silence like armor. Because what she didn't know was this: I had built something. It started small, on nights when no one noticed I was missing. I worked at a little desk in the corner of my rented room, a second-hand laptop glowing in the dark. I poured everything into it: hours, sweat, hope. At first, it was just an idea, a simple online service I believed could solve a problem no one else was paying attention to. Everyone said I was wasting time. My siblings laughed when they saw me typing away. "Jordan's playing pretend again," they'd whisper. My mother would sigh, shaking her head. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" But the truth was, while they slept, while they mocked, I was quietly building the very thing that would one day sustain them. Months turned into years. Failures piled up. My site crashed. I lost what little money I had. I cried into my pillow more times than I'd admit. Yet, I never stopped. And then, one day, it worked. People started using it. Then more. And suddenly, the revenue wasn't pennies anymore. It was enough to pay rent. Enough to cover bills. Enough to make a difference. But here's the twist they never imagined. When the house mortgage almost collapsed, who paid it off? Me. When the electricity almost got cut, who wired the money? Me. When my siblings' tuition nearly ruined them, yes, it was me again. Anonymous transfers. Silent gifts. Quiet lifelines. They never asked who. They just assumed God provided. I never corrected them. Not yet. Because the day of reckoning, I knew, would come. And when it did, the failure would finally hold all the power at the table. The night of the dinner felt like walking into a trap. The chandelier light glared too bright, bouncing off polished silverware, reflecting the smugness in my siblings' faces. My mother sat at the head of the table, her glass of wine in hand like a scepter. She started the night with her usual jabs, slicing through me before the soup even cooled. "Jordan, really, you're nearly 30. No house. No car. Nothing to show for your life. Tell me, how does it feel to be a burden?" The table erupted in laughter. My sister leaned back in her chair, smirking. "Maybe one day you'll actually land a job." My brother chimed in, "Or maybe a date, first." I forced a smile, my hands trembling beneath the table. They thought I was shrinking, breaking apart. But inside, a storm was brewing, steady and unshakable. I let them laugh. I let them sneer. Every word was fuel. Then, as plates were cleared and dessert arrived, my mother leaned in, her voice sharp enough to pierce bone. "You've always been a disappointment. I should have stopped wasting money on you years ago." That was it. The final straw. I placed my fork down, the sound echoing louder than their laughter. The room fell silent. "Funny thing, Mom," I said slowly, my voice steady for the first time that night, "you've never actually been wasting money on me." She frowned, confused. My siblings exchanged looks. I leaned back, my heart pounding like thunder. "Do you know who's been paying your mortgage every month? Who made sure the lights never went out when you forgot the bills? Who covered your precious credit card debt before the collectors showed up?" The air turned thick, suffocating. No one spoke. I let the silence stretch, savoring their unease. "Me," I finally whispered. "The failure." My mother's glass froze in her hand. My sister's smirk vanished. My brother blinked, like he'd misheard. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Because the real reveal, the one that would crush their laughter into dust, was still waiting on my tongue. For a moment, the only sound was the faint hum of the chandelier above. My mother's eyes narrowed, her pride cracking, but she still forced a scoff. "You. Don't be ridiculous. You've never had 2 cents to rub together." I leaned forward, my voice calm, almost dangerous. "Check your phone, Mom." She blinked. "What?" "Go on. Open your banking app." With trembling fingers, she pulled her phone out, her irritation showing. My siblings leaned in, curious now, like vultures circling something they couldn't quite see. When the numbers hit her screen, she froze. Her wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered against the marble floor. The silence was deafening. What is this?" she stammered. "That," I said, my heart steady for the first time in years, "is the account I've been using to keep this family afloat. The house. Paid. The debts. Cleared. The bills you complain about every month. Covered. By me." My sister shot forward, eyes wide. "Wait, are you saying you've been the one?" "Yes," I cut in sharply, "I've been the one you've mocked for being a failure. The one you never believed in. And yet, I've been saving you all from drowning while you laughed at me." My brother shook his head in disbelief. "But oh how? You don't even have a job." That's when I smiled. A slow, deliberate smile that made their stomachs twist. "Oh, I have a job. One that doesn't need your approval. One that's been more successful than anything you've ever done." I reached into my bag and pulled out the final blow, a sleek folder with company logos stamped across it. I slid it across the table. They opened it and froze. "My tech startup," I explained. "The one you all dismissed as a joke. Last month, it sold for $48 million. The room erupted, not in laughter this time, but in gasps, silence, and disbelief. My mother's lips quivered. My siblings sat stunned, as though the world had tilted beneath them. And me. I just leaned back in my chair, finally free, watching their power drain like water through broken glass. "Now tell me," I whispered, my voice like a knife slicing through the quiet. "Who's the failure?" The silence at that dinner table felt heavier than any words could carry. My mother sat there, her face pale, her hands trembling as she tried to process everything I had just revealed. For the first time in my life, she didn't have a comeback, didn't have a sneer ready, didn't have the power. My brother shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his voice cracking. "You mean, all this time, while we were laughing at you, while Mom was calling you useless, you were the one keeping us afloat?" "Yes," I said, my tone calm but sharp as glass. "Every time the lights stayed on, it was me. Every time the mortgage didn't eat this house, It was me. Every single bill, every debt, me. I looked straight into my mother's eyes, refusing to blink. And you knew nothing, because you never cared to look past your pride. Her lips parted, but no sound came. For once, her voice, the one that had always been so loud, so cruel, so condemning, failed her. My sister, the one who had always mocked my small ideas, whispered, "But why didn't you tell us?" "Because," I said slowly, leaning forward, "I wanted to see if you'd ever love me for who I was, not for what I could provide. And you failed that test." The words hit like a storm. My mother's pride cracked right there at the table. She tried to hold her posture, but the tears welled up, blurring her cold, sharp gaze. Then she whispered the words I thought I'd never hear. I was wrong." The others stared at her, stunned. She had never admitted fault in her life. But here she was, trembling, swallowing her pride like shards of glass. "I thought you'd never be anything," she continued, her voice breaking. "I thought you were weak. But you," her tears spilled now, "you saved us. All of us." I felt the air shift. 4 years, I had carried the weight of being the failure of this family. But in that moment, the crown of shame they had forced on my head melted into a crown of power. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the marble floor. "You don't ever get to call me a failure again." They nodded silently. My brother lowered his eyes. My sister looked ashamed. And my mother, my proud, unforgiving mother, was sobbing quietly into her napkin. I walked toward the door, every step echoing with the freedom I had finally claimed. But just before I left, I turned back one last time. "You always wanted to control me, Mom. But now, you live under my roof, paid for with my money. So tell me," I leaned into the silence, my words cutting deep, "who's the failure now?" And with that, I walked away. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one begging for a seat.